when I was 11 with my mother. The visits we made together left a deep and lasting impression.
Behind the heavy gates of the estate, a quiet royal war just erupted. For 20 years, Queen Camilla maintained an unwritten rule across crown properties. Princess Diana's private spaces were silenced, updated, or shuttered for good. No lingering physical markers or emotional sanctuaries. Then Prince William stepped in. Bypassing palace gatekeepers and ignoring direct estate directives, the Prince of Wales delivered an ultimatum. He secretly ordered the complete restoration of Diana's forgotten private villa. Aides are panicking, Camilla is furious, and King Charles is trapped right between his wife and his son. What secret inside that sealed property forced William to act now? The sealed gates at the estate. At 6 o'clock on a cold Tuesday morning, heavy construction trucks pulled up to the high iron gates of the royal estate. The massive steel chains had remained locked for more than 20 years. Royal security guards immediately rushed out to stop the convoy. But the lead contractor did not argue or turn back. He simply handed over an official legal document stamped with a royal seal. The order was not signed by King Charles. It was not authorized by Queen Camilla. The directive came straight from Prince William, and inside those papers was a hidden legal clause that changed everything. The security team stood in total shock. Heavy machinery, structural engineers, and elite conservation experts were idling right outside the locked perimeter. For over 2 decades, no one had been allowed inside this private villa. It was supposed to be a forgotten corner of the royal grounds. Yet, here stood an entire restoration crew with full authorization to break the seals. Word was sent straight to the main palace offices. Panic spread through the staff in minutes. Security officers scrambled to verify the order. They assumed there had to be a mistake. Palace protocol strictly required all estate modifications to pass through the senior monarch's management team. That meant Queen Camilla's office had final approval over every brick, garden, and interior redesign across crown properties. But this crew was not waiting for palace clearance. They had heavy cutting tools ready to unseal the gates. To understand the sheer panic in the palace that morning, you have to look at the unwritten rule that governed the royal household for 20 years. Ever since Princess Diana passed away in 1997, a quiet effort took place behind closed doors. Queen Camilla and her senior team maintained a firm policy regarding the late princess's memory across royal estates. Physical markers were systematically removed or altered. Diana's favorite flower beds were replanted with new landscaping. Private rooms where she spent her quietest weekends were redecorated or converted into storage spaces. Memorial plaques were quietly shifted out of public view. It was not done with loud announcements. It was done through quiet, steady administrative decisions. The goal of the palace strategy was simple. The royal brand needed to move forward. Senior advisors felt that maintaining physical sanctuaries dedicated to Diana kept old public grief alive. It also reminded the public of the most painful chapter in King Charles's past. So, one by one, Diana's private spaces were silenced. And this isolated villa on the edge of the estate was the ultimate example. Its heavy wooden doors were locked. Its curtains were drawn shut. Its history was completely mothballed. So how did Prince William manage to bypass the Queen's entire administrative network without anyone knowing? The secret lies in a forgotten document William uncovered deep in the archives of the Duchy of Cornwall. When William inherited the title of Duke of Cornwall, he gained direct authority over a massive portfolio of land, properties, and historical covenants. While sifting through old land trust agreements from the late 1990s, William made a startling discovery. The villa was not legally governed by the Central Palace estate manager. In 1995, an obscure land swap agreement had placed the villa's structural title directly under the Duchy of Cornwall's private trust. For nearly 30 years, palace officials had treated the property as standard crown land. But William's legal team spotted the loophole. As Duke of Cornwall, William possessed sole legal autonomy over duchy assets. He did not need permission from Clarence House or approval from the king's advisors. And he certainly did not need consent from Queen Camilla. William quietly spent months preparing the restoration mandate in complete secrecy. He signed the orders using his independent duchy powers. William hired private conservation specialists who were bound by ironclad non-disclosure agreements. By the time palace security read the paperwork at the gate, the legal mandate was already active and legally binding. When news reached Clarence House, Senior aides were caught entirely off guard. Queen Camilla was reportedly furious when she learned that surveyors had already breached the perimeter. She immediately called an emergency meeting with senior estate directors. She demanded that the work be halted instantly. But when officials reviewed William's legal paperwork, they came to a chilling realization. They were powerless to stop the heavy machinery. King Charles now found himself in an agonizing position. On one side, his wife demanded that royal administrative authority be respected. On the other side, his son and heir had executed a flawless legal maneuver to honor his mother's memory. Charles was trapped right in the middle of a war he never saw coming. What dramatic secret lies hidden inside that long, locked villa that forced Prince William to act so decisively right now? And as the heavy wooden doors swing open for the first time in 20 years, will this bold move ignite an open war that shatters the fragile balance of King Charles's reign forever? The lost sanctuary of Princess Diana. Prince William knew the immense risks of defying the palace, but his decision was rooted in the chaos of the mid-1990s. During those turbulent years, the royal family faced an unprecedented wave of public scrutiny. Princess Diana stood right at the epicenter of a global media frenzy. Paparazzi stalked her every step through the streets of London. No private moment was safe from international headlines. Diana desperately needed an escape. She needed a quiet place where camera lenses could not reach her. That place was this secluded villa on the distant edge of the royal estate. It was not a grand state palace. It was a modest, beautiful home hidden behind dense ancient trees and high stone walls. For Diana, it became a true sanctuary away from the relentless public eye. In this home, she was not the Princess of Wales. She was simply a devoted mother. She could kick off her shoes, read her favorite books, and breathe freely. She filled the cozy rooms with pastel silk cushions, fresh floral wallpaper, and soft watercolor paintings. Diana surrounded herself with personal items that brought her comfort during the darkest months of her marriage breakdown. When the conservation crew finally breached the heavy wooden doors, they stepped into a living time capsule. For over 20 years, the air inside had remained completely still. Dust settled thickly over vintage furniture, but the essence of Diana's world remained intact. The team uncovered a space frozen in 1997. Faint sunlight peeked through heavy, faded curtains. It illuminated soft pink walls and delicate floral carpets. In the center of the main drawing room sat Diana's grand mahogany piano. Sheets of handwritten sheet music remained resting on the music stand, exactly as she had left them on her final visit. Deep inside her private study, the restoration team made a startling discovery. They found a small velvet-lined wooden box tucked inside a hidden desk drawer. Inside were private personal items that Diana had cherished during her final weeks alive. There were handwritten journal entries, private letters to her close friends, and personal photograph albums. Most poignant of all were framed candid photographs of young Prince William and Prince Harry. These were not formal royal portraits. They were intimate family snapshots. The young princes were smiling on beach trips and laughing in casual clothes during summer vacations. What dramatic secrets were written inside those forgotten journal entries? And why had palace officials worked so hard to keep these deeply personal items sealed away for so many decades? After Diana's tragic death in August of 1997, the mood across the royal estate shifted drastically. The entire world was grieving. Millions of floral tributes flooded the gates of Kensington Palace. Inside the palace walls, senior administrators felt overwhelmed by the emotional public reaction. They feared that lingering physical symbols of Diana would create long-term instability for the monarchy. A quiet decision was made to close down her favorite spaces. Senior officials ordered the secluded villa to be locked down immediately. The keys were collected and handed over to private security officers. The interior heating systems were turned off. The heavy curtains were pulled tight. The gardens outside were completely neglected, allowing thick ivy to climb over the brickwork and obscure the windows. The official story told to junior staff was that the property was undergoing long-term structural repairs, but in reality, the royal household wanted the villa permanently forgotten. Over the next 2 decades, Queen Camilla's administrative team reinforced this policy of quiet silence. Physical markers across Crown Land were systematically erased or updated to reflect the new royal era. Any request to reopen or restore Diana's private retreat was met with firm administrative opposition. Advisors insisted that reopening the space would reignite painful public debate and distract from the current reign. For Prince William, this secluded villa was not just an old historic building, it was a sacred vault of childhood memories. As a young boy, William spent countless weekends at the property with his mother. Away from the strict protocols of Buckingham Palace, he experienced rare moments of normal family life here. He remembered playing board games in the living room on rainy afternoons. William remembered his mother laughing as they prepared simple meals together in the cozy kitchen. It was one of the few places where he had felt completely safe and protected. The happy sounds of his mother's laughter still echoed through those silent rooms. As William grew into adulthood, the forced silence surrounding the villa became increasingly painful. Seeing his mother's sanctuary treated as a forgotten storage facility felt like an insult to her memory. He knew that as long as the villa remained locked, a vital part of his mother's true story remained suppressed. He vowed that one day, when he possessed the legal power, he would return to unlock those doors himself. That moment had finally arrived. But as the conservation team began setting up their restoration equipment, a major obstacle emerged from the main palace offices. Queen Camilla had no intention of allowing William's project to proceed without a fight. She was determined to enforce royal authority and shut down the restoration work before it went any further, overturning the Queen's directive. For over 2 decades, estate management across royal lands followed a strict, unwritten chain of command. Senior estate managers answered directly to the sovereign and the Queen consort. Queen Camilla maintained significant administrative influence over crown residences, interior styling, and official property upkeep. Her team ensured that every physical structure reflected the present and future of the royal brand, rather than its painful past. Under standard palace protocol, no historical building could be unsealed, renovated, or redecorated without explicit approval from senior estate directors. Private sanctuaries, listed buildings, and secluded villas were carefully monitored to maintain institutional harmony. Any attempt to alter these properties required months of formal reviews, budget allocations, and executive sign-offs. Prince William's sudden, quiet mandate completely shattered this established hierarchy. By dispatching a private restoration crew to unseal the long-forgotten villa, he bypassed every traditional palace checkpoint. When news of the breach reached Clarence House, senior royal advisors were thrown into total disarray. Queen Camilla reportedly viewed the move as a direct challenge to established estate governance. From her perspective, allowing individual family members to launch unauthorized restoration projects set a dangerous precedent for the entire royal household. Within hours, an emergency summit was convened behind closed doors at Clarence House. The atmosphere inside the meeting room was filled with intense friction. Queen Camilla brought her chief administrative aides and estate managers to the table. She argued that the royal estate needed unity, consistency, and clear boundaries, especially during a delicate transitional era for the monarchy. Camilla's team voiced deep concerns about the public and media impact of William's unexpected project. Reopening a long, sealed sanctuary dedicated to Princess Diana would inevitably attract massive international attention. Advisors warned that sensational headlines would dredge up decades-old personal rivalries, overshadow ongoing public duties, and distract from King Charles's current reign. Camilla demanded that the restoration work be halted immediately. She insisted that the heavy machinery be removed from the grounds and that the property remain locked until a formal estate committee could review the legal paperwork. Prince William, however, remained completely unmoved by the administrative pressure. Facing senior palace officials and royal advisors, the Prince of Wales held his ground with firm, quiet determination. He made it abundantly clear that honoring his late mother's personal legacy was not open for debate or administrative negotiation. At the center of this fierce clash stood King Charles, trapped in an agonizing personal dilemma. The king found himself torn between the 2 most important relationships in his life. On one side stood his wife, Queen Camilla, who fought to maintain a state order, administrative authority, and structural discipline across crown properties. On the other side stood his son and heir, Prince William, whose emotional motivation was driven by deep devotion to his late mother's memory. If Charles sided with Camilla and ordered the restoration stopped, he risked permanently damaging his relationship with William. He also risked looking heartless to a global public that still held deep affection for Princess Diana. But if Charles supported William's unsanctioned actions, he risked undermining his wife's standing and weakening the authority of his own administrative office. Camilla pressed Charles to intervene directly. She urged him to exercise his authority as monarch and issue an official executive order forcing William's team to stand down. However, when Royal Legal Counsel thoroughly reviewed the underlying documents, the reality became unmistakably clear. The legal loopholes William had uncovered were airtight. Because the villa's title had been transferred under an obscure Duchy of Cornwall covenant back in 1995, it operated outside standard Crown estate jurisdiction. As Duke of Cornwall, William held sole legal guardianship over the asset. The king possessed no legal mechanism to override the covenant without launching a public legal battle against his own son and heir. King Charles realized his hands were completely tied. He refused to issue a formal directive against William, choosing instead to remain neutral. The king understood the deep emotional wounds his son carried from childhood. He also recognized that attempting to force William to abandon the project would trigger a massive public rift that the royal family could not afford. The Queen's directive was effectively overturned. Estate security was instructed to step back and allow William's conservation specialists to continue their work unhindered. Prince William had executed a masterstroke of legal strategy and political maneuver. He proved that he possessed both the legal knowledge and the resolve to protect his mother's memory, regardless of palace opposition. As heavy structural equipment began echoing through the quiet woods surrounding the villa, the royal household braced for what might come next. Workers were now preparing to step inside the most personal chambers of Diana's lost sanctuary. What surprising discoveries were waiting for them behind those long locked doors? The secret restoration and renovation wars. Prince William knew that winning the initial legal battle was only the first step. Operating on royal grounds meant that palace walls had ears, and tabloid journalists paid top dollar for internal leaks. To keep the restoration project moving forward without media interference, the Prince of Wales took extraordinary precautions. He bypassed standard Crown maintenance contracts completely. Instead of using regular palace staff, William brought in elite, independent British heritage craftsmen from outside the royal network. Every master carpenter, painter, electrician, and stonemason had to sign ironclad non-disclosure agreements before stepping foot onto the grounds. The legal penalties for breaking these non-disclosure agreements were severe. Any worker who leaked photos or details faced immediate legal action, massive financial fines, and total blacklisting from high-profile restoration projects. Work crews arrived at the estate under cover of early morning darkness in unmarked utility vans. They covered all heavy restoration equipment under plain canvas sheets to avoid attracting attention from passing vehicles or local residents. Security protocols at the villa gates were stricter than an official head of state visit. Private security officers hired directly by the Duchy of Cornwall managed the entrance checkpoint. Personal cell phones were confiscated from all workers before they entered the work site. GPS tracking devices on all delivery vehicles were strictly disabled while on property grounds. Drone jamming devices were activated around the villa perimeter to stop tabloid photographers from getting aerial footage. For several weeks, a small army of specialized craftsmen worked quietly inside the villa under complete radio silence. The goal of the project was not simply to repair structural damage or fix weathered masonry. Prince William wanted to restore his late mother's sanctuary exactly as she had loved it in the mid-1990s. His conservation team relied on high-resolution archival photographs retrieved from Diana's private estate files. Interior historians searched across Europe to find exact matches for vintage wallpaper patterns and pastel silk fabrics. Master carpet weavers were commissioned to recreate the precise floral floor coverings Diana had picked out decades ago. Every dye lot was carefully color-matched to ensure total historical accuracy. Out in the neglected garden, specialist horticulturists began restoring the wild, overgrown grounds surrounding the stone cottage. The thick, suffocating ivy climbing over the ancient brick walls was carefully trimmed back. Diana's favorite flowers, sweet-scented white roses, delicate forget-me-nots, and classic English lavender were replanted along the original stone walkways. The forgotten greenhouse was cleaned out, reglazed, and brought back to working order. Inside the main drawing room, technicians worked patiently to restore the grand mahogany piano. The instrument was delicately cleaned, fine-tuned and polished until the dark wood shone like new. Every painting, lamp, and ceramic ornament was returned to its original historic position. Step by step, the silent building was turning back into a warm, living home. However, secret projects inside royal territory rarely remain hidden forever. As supply trucks continued arriving near the secluded woods, senior palace aides began asking sharp, persistent questions. Whispers spread rapidly through the administrative halls at Buckingham Palace and Clarence House. Senior staff members loyal to the traditional establishment began looking for ways to counter William's move. Soon, selective leaks started appearing in key UK media outlets. Anonymous palace sources began framing the restoration as a questionable, expensive expenditure during tough economic times. Strategic news briefings questioned why significant financial resources were being poured into an obscure estate property. Other unsourced reports claimed that reopening the villa was an unwise decision that would unnecessarily reopen old public wounds. Camilla's allies argued quietly behind closed doors that the project was a dramatic emotional exercise. They warned that highlighting Diana's private retreat directly undermined the unified image of King Charles's modern reign. The atmosphere between the Prince of Wales's team and senior palace directors grew increasingly cold and hostile. Briefing wars behind the scenes threatened to erupt into open tabloid warfare at any moment. Amidst the rising media pressure and internal hostility, Prince William had a crucial partner standing firmly by his side. Princess Catherine stepped into a vital supporting role behind the scenes. Kate understood the deep emotional weight this sanctuary carried for her husband. She also recognized the immense historical importance of preserving Diana's true personal environment for future generations. Kate worked directly with the interior historians to make sure the restored villa felt lived in and welcoming. She did not want the property to feel like a cold, formal museum or a solemn monument to grief. Instead, she envisioned a private, peaceful family haven where their 3 children could play and feel a genuine personal connection to their late grandmother. Kate spent hours reviewing fabric swatches, approving paint shades, and choosing comfortable furnishings. Her practical involvement shielded William from constant administrative headaches, allowing him to focus on managing the broader strategic picture. Together, the Prince and Princess of Wales presented a completely united front against palace critics. They were determined to build a safe retreat where Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis could learn about Princess Diana's real personality away from public pressure. With the structural repairs complete and the garden back in full bloom, the restoration phase was drawing to a close. But as the last coat of paint dried in the study, an unexpected discovery inside Diana's private desk was about to shift the power dynamic once again. The Duchy power move and family friction. Prince William's bold actions sent shockwaves through the administrative core of the royal institution. For generations, heirs to the throne relied on the reigning monarch for financial allocations, property permissions, and official approvals. Every major project required sign-offs from Central Palace treasurers and senior advisors, but William held a strategic advantage that completely changed the rules of engagement. When William became the Prince of Wales, he also inherited full control over the Duchy of Cornwall. This vast land and investment portfolio was valued at over $1 billion. It generated millions of pounds in private annual income every single year. This financial engine gave William complete independence from traditional palace funding channels. He did not need to ask the king for financial support or ask from central treasury committees. William funded the entire restoration project directly through independent duchy resources. He paid the specialized heritage artisans, security forces, and conservation experts from his private accounts. Central estate managers had always used budget controls to delay or cancel unwanted projects. Whenever senior royals proposed initiatives that created institutional tension, administrative committees could simply withhold financial clearance. William eliminated that leverage in a single stroke. By using his independent wealth, he proved that palace gatekeepers could no longer control his actions through financial pressure. He was operating as a self-sustaining power center within the crown. While the financial maneuvering unfolded behind closed doors, a dramatic discovery inside the villa added fresh momentum to William's crusade. Inside Diana's private study, specialist restorers were carefully cleaning her mahogany desk. Deep behind a faux back panel in the lower desk drawer, workers noticed a hidden mechanical latch. When activated, the mechanism released a small, velvet-lined storage compartment. Inside sat a forgotten collection of handwritten letters, personal notebook entries, and sealed envelopes. The letters were written in Diana's iconic flowing script during the final turbulent years of her life. The documents contained deeply personal reflections on her hopes for her two young sons. Diana had written extensively about the values she wanted William and Harry to carry into adulthood. She expressed her strong desire that her children remain grounded, compassionate, and true to themselves, regardless of palace pressure. The discovery carried immense emotional weight for the Prince of Wales. Reading his late mother's direct, unfiltered words reaffirmed why he had taken such massive risks to unseal the sanctuary. The letters were not written for public consumption or media strategy. They were the private thoughts of a devoted mother trying to protect her children's future. William instructed his team to archive every single document securely in his private trust. When news of the discovery reached senior advisors at Clarence House, anxiety levels rose sharply. Queen Camilla's inner circle viewed the situation with deep concern. Strategists warned that resurrecting Diana's personal story on such a massive scale directly threatened ongoing public relation efforts. For years, Camilla's team worked tirelessly to build her public image as a dedicated, steady queen consort. They worried that a fully restored sanctuary dedicated to Diana would trigger intense international media coverage. Tabloids and television networks would inevitably draw direct comparisons between the two women. Advisors argued that focusing public attention on Diana's painful final years would reignite old grievances among the public. They felt it undermined the unified modern image King Charles was trying to project during his reign. Tensions between Clarence House and Kensington Palace grew increasingly sharp. Senior aides traded tense emails and held urgent strategy sessions behind closed doors. Camilla's supporters urged the king to take a firmer stand against his son. They argued that allowing William to operate without palace oversight established a dangerous precedent for future royal governance. However, Prince William remained entirely indifferent to political complaints from senior advisors. He made it clear that honoring his mother's direct memory was a non-negotiable personal duty. This fierce confrontation exposed a fundamental shift in the internal hierarchy of the British royal family. Prince William was no longer simply an heir following orders from the monarch's office. He was demonstrating the decisive, strong-willed leadership style that would define his future reign. By leveraging his legal rights, financial autonomy, and public support, William showed that he could not be sidelined or managed by palace courtiers. The balance of power between the king's household and the heir's team had permanently shifted. William had proven that when core personal principles were at stake, he possessed the resolve to stand his ground against the highest authority in the land. As the restoration phase drew to its final completion, the physical transformation of the villa was complete. All that remained was the most emotional step of all, which is unlocking the sanctuary doors for the next generation of the royal family. The private unveiling. And a legacy. Reclaimed, the final coat of paint had dried, and the fragrance of fresh white roses filled the sunlit rooms. What was once a cold, forgotten ruin had returned to life. The heavy oak doors, locked for over 20 years, stood wide open once again. The long, tense battle with palace administrators had finally reached its end. Prince William had secured his mother's sanctuary, and now the moment of personal reflection had arrived. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, away from media cameras and public eyes, a private car pulled up the long driveway. Prince William arrived at the secluded property with Princess Catherine and their 3 children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. This was not an official royal engagement or a publicity stunt. It was a deeply personal family homecoming. For the young princes and princesses, this was their very first time stepping inside their grandmother's private world. Up until now, Princess Diana was a figure they knew through stories, family portraits, and television documentaries. Now, they were standing inside the quiet rooms where she actually lived, laughed, and found peace. William led his children through the bright, airy hallway into the main drawing room. The restored mahogany piano stood polished in the corner, with sheet music placed on the stand. William sat down with George and Charlotte, showing them the keys their grandmother used to play. He shared soft childhood memories of sitting on the carpet, listening to her practice music on quiet afternoons. Next, they walked into the quiet study where Diana spent her private hours writing personal letters. On the desk sat framed photographs of young William and Harry laughing on summer vacations. Princess Kate guided young Louis around the garden, showing him the sweet-scented English lavender and white rose bushes planted in memory of Diana. The atmosphere inside the house was not solemn or heavy with grief. Thanks to Catherine's careful touch, the sanctuary felt warm, lived in, and full of life. It was a space where the next generation of the royal family could feel a genuine physical connection to the grandmother they never had the chance to meet. While the family spent their quiet afternoon together inside the villa, reports of the secret restoration project began breaking across international news outlets. Front-page headlines around the world announced that the Prince of Wales had officially unsealed and restored Princess Diana's long-lost sanctuary. The public reaction was swift and overwhelmingly positive. Royal commentators praised Prince William for his courage, loyalty, and quiet determination. Millions of royal fans praised the Prince of Wales for refusing to let his mother's true personal environment be erased from history. The sheer volume of positive news coverage caught palace strategists completely off guard. The fears raised by senior aides at Clarence House proved to be entirely unfounded. Reopening the sanctuary did not create public outrage or undermine the monarchy. Instead, it brought a massive wave of public warmth and affection toward the royal family. Inside the palace walls, the dynamic had permanently altered. Queen Camilla's inner circle recognized that further opposition was pointless. The overwhelming public support for William's project made any continued pushback politically impossible. Camilla quietly accepted the outcome, recognizing that the balance of authority across crown estates had undergone a fundamental shift. Estate security protocols were updated to ensure the villa remained under the direct, exclusive management of the Prince of Wales and the Duchy of Cornwall. For King Charles, seeing his son successfully complete the restoration brought a quiet sense of relief. The king realized that William had accomplished something vital for the long-term health of the monarchy. By honoring Diana's memory rather than hiding it, William had healed a long-standing wound that had lingered over the institution for decades. This successful stand carried profound implications for the future of the British crown. By taking on palace gatekeepers and winning, Prince William demonstrated the strong, independent leadership style he will bring to his future reign. He proved that he will not be bound by outdated protocols or administrative fear. He showed that he possesses the political intelligence to use legal structures and financial independence to achieve his core principles. Most importantly, William made it clear that compassion, emotional authenticity, and family loyalty will sit right at the center of his modern monarchy. As evening fell over the estate, Prince William stood in the quiet garden one last time before departing. The stone cottage stood warm and bright against the twilight sky. The silent embargo that had covered his mother's legacy for 20 years was permanently shattered. Her sanctuary was restored, her voice was honored, and her memory was secured for generations to come. Prince William took on the entire palace establishment to protect his mother's memory. He proved that true leadership means standing firm for what matters most. Diana's sanctuary is no longer a forgotten secret buried behind locked gates. It stands today as a living symbol of love, strength, and family loyalty. This bold move marks the beginning of a brand new era for the British royal family. Prince William has shown the world exactly what kind of king he will be when his time comes. What do you think of Prince William's brave decision? Did he do the right thing by defying palace orders?